hello, my Bible friends. It's good to see you. Well, we're going to get ready for an exciting adventure as the Israelites finally move into the promised land, the land God promised them. In this lesson, we'll see how Joshua helps each tribe find their special place to live. From big cities to peaceful valleys, God shows He always keeps His word. So come along and learn how trusting God brings blessings. Now, before we get started, remember there's always a few words we should get to know first because the Bible uses a lot of words we may not be familiar with or words that don't mean the same thing to us now. And we want to make sure we know what it meant when it was written to God's people. Well, our first word is going to be, what about an ancestor? What is an ancestor? Well, that's one from whom a person is descended, or one who usually or is remotely in the line of a descendant, like a grandparent or a cousin or an uncle, someone who's a little bit further up in your line of descendants. What about the word ascent? Oh, you're right. That's the act of rising up or climbing up. Just like descent would be going down, ascent is going up. Very good. Asheroth. Asheroth. Did you know that that was a false goddess of the Sidonians? Why, it's like Baal was a male false god. Asheroth was a female false god, and she was worshipped by many of the Canaanites because they didn't know about the one true God above. How about an avenger? Oh, I like their movies. Oh, but an avenger is the act of taking vengeance, an action on behalf of another person. Avenger. How about the word boundary? Boundary. A boundary is something that points out or that shows the limit or an end, a dividing line. It looks like there's a rock boundary right here at the edge of the yard. Boundary. Okay, what about breach? Do you know the word breach? Why, breach would be a violation of a law or a contract. It's been broken. Breach. What about casting lots? I read this a lot in the Bible. They cast lots for different things. Well, it was a method of decision making used by believers in the Old Testament or the New and even the New Testament. We don't know exactly what it was, but some say it was like casting dice to see what God's answer was, and that God always had control of what the outcome would be. Casting lots. What about the word clan? Clan. Why, a clan is a group of people that have a common ancestor or family. Yeah, a clan. What about a congregation? Well, a congregation is a gathering or a collection of people. There's a group congregated or gathered together. Congregation. What about the word distribute? Do you know that one? Distribute? Of course. Look, this kind of looks like the UPS guy that comes to my house, or even the Amazon delivery guy. It is distribute is to divide among several or many. Why, it looks like he's distributing packages or maybe food or supplies to the people in the line. Distribute. Divination. Not a good word. Divination is the art or practice of using signs or magic powers to foretell the future. No, That's not right because you should be talking to God first and asking for His advice, not some hocus pocus thing. Manslayer. Oh, why, that is someone who commits murder. Persist. Why, to persist is to continue on, not give up, keep trying. Sojourn. That's to stay in a temporary resident. You're going to keep moving on, but your sojourn, you're traveling through different countries or areas. What about the word tabernacle? Well, the tabernacle was the Israelites' portable place of worship. During the Exodus, the tent, sanctuary, the tabernacle was made lightweight so that it could easily be put together as they moved or taken back down. The tabernacle. How about tableland? Well, again, kind of like the lowland, a tableland would be a broad, flat, elevated area, like a plateau. Unclean. Oh, I see this in the Old Testament a lot too. Unclean. Well, it's unholy or impure. It's, well, the opposite of clean. Leviticus chapter 11 gave the Israelites information from God that certain animals, birds, and fish, they were not permitted to eat. God had already taken care of them and knew that these weren't safe for them at that time, and He declared them to be unclean. Don't eat these. What about the word utterly? Utterly is an absolute or extreme degree to a full extent. This gentleman looks like he's utterly full from a big lunch. Vengeance. Vengeance is punishment given in return for an injury or an offense. It's to get revenge. Vengeance. Holy. Now notice this is a holy that starts with a W, like the word whole. This is a lot of vocabulary words for this particular lesson, but I just want you to know that even though you don't need to know these for, well, a test or a Bible Bowl quiz or something like that, these are just words that if you know what they mean, it makes it easier to read the Bible and understand what they mean. There's no test or quiz over these words. This is just so you know when you sit down to read your Bible what those words mean and can understand what God's trying to tell us. I know you're doing great. Now, let's get started with our lesson. Our lesson is going to be why we're going to start dividing up that land. Central warfare is over. No more war. And now it's time to settle in the promised land. The Israelites must now divide and decide who will live where. Like all things of God, it will be done in an orderly process. How will they determine who gets what piece of land? Who should go first? Oh, as always, God has a plan. The only need is to follow His directions for everything. So let's review our chapter rhyme so we remember what's happened so far. 5 Amorite kings attack in Gibeon. The sun stood still in Joshua 10. Kings of the north come with army and weapon, but Israel has the victory in Joshua 11. Kings defeated by Israel, the chapter will delve, 31 in total in Joshua 12. Oh, great job keeping up with those rhymes. It does help us remember what's happening. Now then, where are we now? Well, this chapter, chapter 13, is going to open up with a discussion between God and Joshua about the areas of the promised land that still need conquered. The second half of Joshua 13 is going to describe how the land was divided east of the Jordan River. It was divided, remember, between Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Let's get started. Oh, who will we meet? Well, of course, 13 through 22, we'll have Joshua. Remember, he was Moses' assistant who led the people in the wilderness. God himself had selected Joshua to lead the Israelites into Canaan after Moses' death. Well, then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Moses. He was the leader of the Israelites before Joshua. God used Moses to free the Israelites from the Egyptian slavery and led them to the border of the promised land. Well, in this lesson, we're also going to meet Eleazar. He was the high priest of Israel. He became high priest after the death of his father, Aaron. You remember Aaron? Aaron was Moses' brother. Oh, good job. So open your Bibles to Joshua chapter 13. Read along with me and remember all those colors in your Bible, they're important. The letters in red, why, that's Jesus or that's God talking. And if you see something in blue, why, that's a person. If you see a word that's in green, that's going to be a place. Okay? That'll help us understand what we're reading. So, the land still to be conquered. Verse 1. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years. The Lord said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and there remains yet very much land to possess. This is the land that yet remains, all the regions of the Philistines and all those of the Geshurites from Shihar, which is east of Egypt, northward toward the boundary of Ekron. It is counted as Canaanite. There are 5 rulers of the Philistines, those of Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, and those of Avim. In the south, all the land of the Canaanites, of Merar, and that belonging to the Sidonians, to Aphek, to the boundary of the Amorites, to the land of the Gebalites, and all of Lebanon, toward the sunrise, from Baal Gad, below Mount Hermon, to Lebo Hamath, all the inhabitants of the hill country of Lebanon, to Misrephoth Maim, even all the Sidonians. I myself, God, will drive them out from before the people of Israel. Only allot the land to Israel for an inheritance, as I have commanded you. Now, therefore, divide this land for an inheritance among the 9.5 tribes, not the 9.5 tribe of Manasseh. Well, at this point, Joshua is about 90 to 100 years old. So God urges him to begin dividing up that conquered land. The territories left to be conquered, including, well, the land of the Philistines, Israel's neighbors to the south, the Phoenician coastline on the north, and the northern mountains of Lebanon. Those will come soon enough. God will give them victory. The Israelites have had victories throughout the land, but it isn't complete. God intends for the process to continue on an individual basis by the tribes settling those territories. Now, do you remember when we started entering Canaan? The one thing Israel had to do to be successful was to obey God. Well, I see right there in verse 6, it says, I myself will drive them out before you. If they're faithful to God. Oh, I hope they're faithful to God because He always keeps His promise. So, verse 8, and now we're going to go through chapters 14, verse 5. The inheritance east of the Jordan. Now remember, the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the eastern half of Manasseh had already received their land on the east side of the Jordan from Moses. However, they were still required to participate in conquering the land on the other side of the Jordan for the rest of their brothers and their tribes. So as we look, the 12 sons of Jacob, from whom those 12 tribes get names, Joseph's inheritance was divided between his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. But because Levi was a clan of the priesthood, he doesn't get a portion of land. His country will be divided into 12 portions, and Levi will have a portion of land in each one of the tribes' lands. Now, all of the instructions are followed as the Lord commanded Moses. So God's already given these instructions once to Moses. And now he concludes with, to Joshua, he's giving him the same commandments, no new rules, exactly as he had told Moses. And that's repeated too throughout that passage. Moses had already laid out the inheritance of Reuben, Gad, and that half tribe of Manasseh before the Jordan was crossed. So Eleazar, Joshua, and the representative of each of those remaining tribes gathered to determine the further land arrangements by casting lots. Now remember, casting lots, we don't know exactly what it is, but we know that God determined who got what. My friends, the rest of this section, we're going to cover a lot of places and boundaries where the different tribes got their land. And I would rather you kind of have a summary of each of those because I think that's what important is to see God kept his promise. If you'd like to go back and read those, go ahead. But I'd like to give you a summary of what's going to happen. In chapter 13, divide the land, soon to be seen, as promised by God in Joshua 13. Using the age of Caleb mentioned in chapter 14, verses 7 through 10, we can conclude that the events of this chapter took place about, 45 years after Moses sent the 12 spies into Canaan back in Numbers 13. Well, Joshua 14 and the following chapters are going to describe how the promised land was divided between those 12 tribes of Israel. And the first person to ask for his inheritance is Caleb. And the last is Joshua. So the entire distribution of the land at this time is framed by only two men from that previous generation who believed that God would do as he said and drive those nations out from before Israel. At that time, Moses guaranteed that Caleb would receive a special inheritance. That's in Deuteronomy 1, verse 36. Caleb stands firm in his convictions. He had 45 years before that said God would grant the victory to the Israelites. Caleb asked for the territory of Anakim. That's the race of where the giants who they previously sent out those other 10 spies, went running scared. But here he is, 45 years later, so he's about 85 years old, and the leader of the only family who would completely expel the enemy from his inheritance. What was his secret to success? Look at verse 14. It says, because he wholly, completely, overflowingly followed the Lord. That's very important. Caleb and Othniel took their land clean, but Judah could not. In Joshua 15. Well, Joshua 15 describes the land allotted to the tribe of Judah. Joshua 16 and 17 describes the land allotted to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, west of the Jordan. The allotment for the tribe of Judah is described in great detail, including Caleb's portion. In reward for his capture of the Sefer, Caleb grants his daughter's hand in marriage to Othniel. Her name was Achish, and she requested to receive the upper and the lower springs to water her inheritance in the Negev. Well, these cities are divided and distributed to each of the smaller families of Judah. Judah is able to dislodge the Jebusites from Jerusalem, so they now live in the cities. Let's keep going. Joseph's land by the Jordan was beautiful and pristine, so Ephraim stayed with Manasseh in Joshua 16. Well, that next allotment for Ephraim and Manasseh, they can't dislodge the Canaanites from Gezer, but they make the inhabitants their servants. Half of Manasseh's share consists of the land east of the Jordan. There are several settlements that Manasseh cannot occupy because the Canaanites are too strong. But when Israel grows strong enough, they make those original inhabitants their servants. Now remember, God said he would drive those inhabitants out. But we got, the secret when we read about Caleb. Caleb wholly followed the Lord's instructions. I think the only reason a tribe could not drive out the inhabitants would be if they did not follow God's instructions. The Canaanites created quite a crime scene when Manasseh couldn't drive them out in Joshua 17. Ephraim and Manasseh complained that they didn't have enough land for all the people in their tribes. So Joshua told them it would require hard work to clear the land. Well, notice that the people that currently occupy the land have iron chariots. It's no wonder they wanted additional land. It would take a lot of work to claim that land. I think they needed a dose of that attitude Caleb had, who was willing to tackle anything with God on his side. Oh dear, I'm all tongue-tied. Their blessings wouldn't come if their hands were stuck in their pockets. There was work they had to do. God would give them victory, but they still had to do the work. Well, a city for Joshua with nothing unclean. The land is given to in Joshua 19. Well, the remaining land is distributed to the remaining tribes. Remember, Simeon shares some of Judah's land, for Judah has much more than it can handle, and Simeon is a much smaller family group. Later we find that Simeon and Judah are acting together to began war against the Canaanites. The Danites in chapter 19 were forced out of their territory and relocated north, while settling in an area formerly known as Leshem. Well, in 19, Simeon received no territory of his own, only 17 townships within the boundaries of Judah. This delegation fulfills Jacob's earlier curse in Genesis chapter 49, verse 7, that Simeon's offsprings would be dispersed throughout Israel. The punishment came out of an earlier cruelty that Simeon displayed along with his brother when he murdered and looted an entire city in a fit of rage. Joshua was one of the original spies who knew that God would give them victory over the giants of Canaan. He remained faithful to the Lord and was permitted to choose an area in the hills of Ephraim to call his own. In the 4 times where Eleazar and Joshua are written as working close together, Eleazar is always named first, out of respect for his position as the high priest. We see that in Joshua 14, at 17, 19, and again we'll see it in 21. The concluding verse in this passage is a reminder that dividing of the land was done at the entrance of the tent of meeting. That means it was done under God's watchful eye. None of it was done without God's supervision. Cities of refuge are aplenty. They are selected in Joshua 20. Well, remember the tribes of Simeon, Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, Dan. These 6 tribes were the last to receive their land and their inheritance in the promised land. Joshua focuses on 20 cities, Joshua 20 focuses on 6 cities of refuge, which were established throughout Israel's land. There were 3 cities of refuge west of the Jordan River and 3 cities of refuge on the east of the Jordan. In the Hebrew economy, a person was considered blameless until proven guilty by the testimony of at least 2 witnesses. The provisions for the city of refuge make a clear distinction between a willful and deliberate murder and manslaughter. That would be, death through an error without knowing. So if a person accidentally took another's life, he would flee to the city of refuge of one of these cities that we just saw. And after a quick review, he would be permitted to live there. When his trial comes up before the assembly, he could be cleared of all crimes, and he may continue to live and make that city his home without fear of revenge or the blood avenger, that close relative who might be feeling that he needs to protect his family. The accused who were proven innocent would be freed to leave the city of refuge without fear of the revenge of death of that would be able to stay there without fear of revenge until the death of the current high priest. Now, these cities were evenly distributed so that an individual would never be more than a day's journey away from a place of sanctuary. Golan, Ramoth, Bezer were east of the Jordan. Kadesh, Shechem, and Kiriath Arbor, or Hebron, were west. All 6 cities were under the protection of the Levites, and their establishment was dictated during the time of Moses. Everything the Lord promised, he has done, including land to the Levites in Joshua 21. Well, in Joshua 21, there's a list of the cities that were given to the Levites. The Levites didn't receive a land inheritance like the other tribes. Instead, they were given a section of cities within the territories of the other tribes. The family heads of the Levites remained the leadership that God had previously determined that they should have towns and pasture lands within the borders of the other tribes. Each of the family units received their allotment, including the 6 cities of refuge. There were 48 towns with surrounding pasture lands given to the Levites. The last 3 verses are a great conclusion to the distribution of the settlement of Canaan. It says, God faithfully kept every oath, and not one word of all that he had sworn was left unfilled. From his first promise to Abraham, to his promises while they were in Egypt, to the commitment he made as they entered the land, everything had been fulfilled. That's just like God, isn't it? Now, open those Bibles back up and let's read 22 together. The eastern tribe returns home. Remember, we've got that Reubenites, Gadites, and that half tribe of Manasseh. They've been fighting with their brothers against the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land to make sure everybody got their land. So this is where we're picking up. They've now got their land, and now it's time for those eastern tribes to go back home to their families and to their animals. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, You have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed my voice in all that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your brothers these many days, down to this day, but have been careful to keep the charge of the Lord your God, the instructions. And now the Lord your God has given rest to your brothers as he promised them. Therefore, return, go to your tents, and in the land where your possessions lie, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Only be very careful to observe the commandments and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God and to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments and to cling to him and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Why, as these tribes east of the Jordan are dismissed and thanked for their military service, Joshua reminds them to love the Lord their God and to keep all his commandments. Now, as you're reading Joshua 22, remember it centers around the tribes who lived on that eastern side of the Jordan, Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Let's continue. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Now, to the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given possession in Bashan, but to the other half, Joshua had given possession beside their brothers in the land west of the Jordan. And when Joshua sent them away to their homes and blessed them, he said to them, Go back to your tents with much wealth, plunder, treasure, and with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, iron, and with much clothing. Divide the spoils of your enemies with your brothers. So the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh returned home, parting from the people of Israel at Shiloh, which is the land of Canaan. to go to the land of Gilead, their own land, of which they had possessed themselves by command of the Lord through Moses. Joshua continues to bless the departing tribes for their service. Why, he gives them livestock and precious metals and clothing. And with all these gifts, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and those from Manasseh who lived across the Jordan took their leave and returned home. Well, let's look Joshua 22, verse 10. The eastern tribes altar of witness. And when they came to the region of Jordan, that is in the land of Canaan, the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, the half tribe of Manasseh, built there an altar by Jordan, an altar of imposing size, really big. And the people of Israel, the other ones that are still on the other side, said, Behold, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and that half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan, in the region of Jordan, on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. And when the people of Israel heard it, the whole assembly of the people of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. Grrr. Then the people of Israel sent to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest. And with him 10 chiefs, one from each of the tribal families of Israel, every one of them a head of a family among the clans of Israel. And they came to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead. And they said to you, Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, What is this breach of faith that you have committed against God of Israel by turning away this day and following the Lord, and by building for yourselves an altar this day in rebellion against the Lord? Is that what you've done? Have we not had enough of the sin at Peor, from which even yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and for which there came a plague in the congregation of the Lord, that you must turn away this day from following the Lord? And if you too rebel against the Lord today, then tomorrow he'll be angry with all of us. But if the land in your possession is unclean, pass over the Lord's land where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take for yourselves possession among us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, or make us as rebels by building for yourselves an altar on our side, other than the altar of the Lord your God. Did not Achan, the son of Zerah, break faith in that matter of the devoted things? And wrath fell on the whole congregation of Israel. And he did not perish alone, his family went with him, for his iniquity, his sin. Let's continue reading. Verse 21. Then the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the family of Israel, The mighty one, God the Lord, the mighty one, God the Lord, he knows. And let Israel itself know if it was in rebellion or in breach of faith against the Lord. Do not spare us today for building an altar to turn away from following the Lord, or if we did so to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings on it. Oh, may the Lord himself take vengeance. No, but we did it from fear that in time you to your children might say to our children, What have you to do with the Lord God of Israel? For the Lord has made a Jordan as a boundary between us and you. You people of Reuben and the people of Gad, you have no portion with the Lord. Oh, I hope they wouldn't say that to them. So your children might make our children stop to worship the Lord. Therefore, we said, let us now build an altar, not for burnt offerings, nor for sacrifices, but to be a witness between us and you, and between our generation and the generations after us. But we do perform the service of the Lord in His presence with our burnt offerings and sacrifices and peace offerings. So your children will not say to our children in time to come, you have no portion with the Lord. And we thought, if this should be said to us or to our descendants in time to come, we should say, behold, the copy of the altar of the Lord, which our fathers made, not for burnt offerings, not for sacrifices, but for to be a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against the Lord or turn away this day from following the Lord by building an altar for burnt offerings or grain offerings or sacrifices on another altar other than the altar the Lord our God that stands before His tabernacle. Oh, so when Phinehas the priest and the others in the congregation and the heads of the families of Israel who were with him heard the words of the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh, it was good in their eyes. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, said to the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh, today we know that the Lord is in our midst, among us, in the middle, because you have not committed a breach of faith against the Lord. Now you have delivered the people of Israel from the hand of the Lord. You helped us. Then Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, and the chiefs returned from the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the people in the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan to the people of Israel and brought back word to them. And the report was good in the eyes of the people of Israel, and the people of Israel were blessed. God spoke no more of making war against them or destroying the land where the people of Reuben, the people of Gad were settled. The people of Reuben and the people of Gad called the altar witness, for they said, it is a witness between us and the Lord is God. Why, when those tribes returned to the other side of the Jordan, why, they built this giant altar beside the river by Shiloh. And Israel, oh my goodness, they got all grumpy, saying, oh, they're going to try and worship God over there, but we have the tabernacle. So they sent this delegation of Phinehas the priest and a man from each tribe. So after they have a conversation, they understand that this was to remind both sides of the Jordan that they had a common faith, not a common place to. It was so that they would know that they both loved and served the Lord. And this altar was named Witness. See, this is proof we both are God's people and love and serve Him. Joshua 22, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh built an altar. Boo-hoo! There are mumblings of war in Joshua 22. So, oh, God wants obedience. He wanted their obedience and he wants ours. 13 tells us how they were able to divide up the land and how they were to follow God. He was generous and faithful. He promised the Israelites and had been slaves in Egypt and had waited for 40 years in the wilderness a home. Because of God's power and strength, the Israelites get a home. And because of God's love, they also get God. Well, I found a few funnies that I thought I'd share with you from chapters 13 through 22. I know that was a big, long lesson, but I can't wait for you to come back and see how everything ends in 23 and 24. Let's take a look at some funny things we can take away. Ancient people of the Old Testament, the Israelites, the Midianites, the Amorites, and the Overbites. Oh, that's so silly. Oh, unclean, unclean. I don't think that's what that word means. Oh, look, they're casting lots. Oh, dear. I hope no one named their child Lot. Oh, look, the man's running with some news. Wilderness Express. For when you absolutely, positively has to be there within 40 years. I don't think that's express. Oh, that was fun. It was a very long lesson, but I hope you come back for chapters 23 and 24. Now, for my kiddos who are in my class, homework this week is Joshua chapters 13 and 14. And also keep up with those chapter heading cards. Keep ahead and look at knowing your headings for Joshua chapter 1 through chapter 22. I know you can do it. I'll see everyone next time. Bye.